Hello, welcome to Culture Hash. Today we're going to get into it, talk about the new Post Malone album, Hollywood's Bleeding. Post Malone's one of the biggest pop stars in the world at the moment. Hollywood's Bleeding, if we're being honest with ourselves, is probably going to be his second straight #1 album in the UK. Post Malone's got that party boy image. Most of his songs concern sex, drugs, and just how rich he is. He takes a lot of cues from The Weeknd with that half-rapped, half-sung flow, lots of auto-tune slathered on his vocals. His first two albums were a celebration of his hedonistic, consequence-free existence. His last album, 2018's Beer Bongs and Bentleys, was exactly what the album title suggests. And on this album, Post Malone explored his lifestyle, namely taking loads of coke, driving fast cars, meeting girls. Beer Bongs and Bentleys can be summed up with one lyric from one track, Spoil My Night, when Post Malone says, "I ain't seen her face, but she's got beautiful boobies." Hollywood's Bleeding comes out 1 year after the unbridled hedonism of Beer Bongs and Bentleys. So what do we expect from Post Malone on an album called Hollywood's Bleeding? Naturally, the project's quite fluid in terms of its genre. Post Malone explores pop, trap, hip-hop, R&B, and a little bit of rock. Post Malone explores trap, hip-hop, R&B, synth-pop, and rock. The title, Hollywood's Bleeding, led me to conclude that this was going to be an exploration of the darker side of fame. A sort of companion project to Beer Bongs and Bentleys. When the party's over, what comes next? The title, Hollywood's Bleeding, led me to conclude that this album would be a bit darker than Beer Bongs and Bentleys. Post Malone, he was newly famous, he was enjoying the lavish lifestyle. So Hollywood's Bleeding, I assumed, would be about this novelty of fame wearing off and Post Malone finding his privacy being eroded. And we certainly get that exploration of the darker side of fame on the title track which opens the project. Hollywood's Bleeding is a fusion between dark R&B and trap. And on here it feels like the party's over. His vocals are more melancholy in the first third of the track before the trap drums come in and he sort of half raps the outro. It's a melancholy opener that led me to wrongly assume that this album was going to be more dark than its predecessor. And then we get to track 2, Saint-Tropez, where the theme's immediately abandoned and Post Malone's back to his trademark boasting. My favourite moment on here is when he says he's got Versace boxes on his dick and Bud Light coming out as piss. Talk about a tonal shift, but very much in line with what we know about Post Malone as a person so far. Hollywood's Bleeding is a fun project. You have to accept it for what it is. It's quite shallow, and it's notable for a plethora of phoned-in rap features throughout. We've got Die For Me with Halsey and Future. Future is just doing what he usually does. Absolutely nothing original from Future here. Just warbling, full of auto-tune on his vocals. Halsey half raps her vocals because everyone nowadays can just put auto-tune on their vocals and just half sing and half rap. Very underwhelmed by SZA on Staring at the Sun. Could have been any other R&B singer delivering the vocals on here. Only DaBaby realised the opportunity and actually put some effort into his rap verse on here. He's the only one that took advantage of the publicity that will come from being featured on this Post Malone album. We've got Take What You Want featuring Ozzy Osbourne and Travis Scott. This track's an absolute mess. I don't think we ever needed Travis Scott, Post Malone and Ozzy Osbourne to be featured on a track together. And their styles don't really mesh. Travis Scott takes over the entire middle section of this track. Ozzy sings the chorus with auto-tune on it. Something, again, we didn't really need to hear. None of it really works together. It feels more like a Travis Scott song due to how he takes over the middle passage. I saw what he tried to do here, but Post Malone and Ozzy Osbourne together might have worked, but Travis Scott just demands too much attention and takes over the centre stage. But it's enjoyable, there's some good tracks on here. I like the single Circles, and Sunflower with Sway Lee is still fantastic. Hollywood's Bleeding, overall, it's a fun project. I was disappointed that the album only touched upon this darker side of fame. There's only a couple of tracks that are dark. The rest are just celebrations of his life, how many drugs he's taking, all the trappings of fame. It's a very surface level exploration of this dark side of Hollywood. Doesn't really redefine anything for Post Malone. We don't learn anything new about him. I'm sure he's going to smash out some singles off here, get more chart success. So for me, Post Malone, Hollywood's Bleeding is worthy of 5 out of 10.